Hello. I put a link to a Piers Morgan YouTube short with regarding President Trump and President Obama. The nature of debate contains quality aspects in nature that was and is used remotely, criminally foreign influence slash hypercriminally foreign influence, if you will. I am not a lawyer, thank God, many ways. Judges, prosecutors have wire and mail crime acts and methods, digital crime acts and methods, also intersocial media, where and how, for example, they have readings of statutes regarding the validity of what is said online and why and how it is that way written, the syntax regarding the laws. But they have left out exceptions and exceptions. And they have such readings of laws that the breaching method used and uses to show them at the same time with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. Their family members, sources, neighbors, all natures of conjunctions to them, the difference of that. The same with the interbranch and intelligence tied to them. They are shared with many nations here and there before our America's founders were born, not just the names that were the surface possessors of those roles with the internationally monitored conversations, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, other natures of industries that are just victim slash hyper victim, other way too, just trying to be good. But evil, where we are fact in nature, and their roles with organized crime methods that are predicate acts with facts methods, wire crime acts and methods, straight up identity theft, fraud, slander styles. On a mass scale, the intelligence community is recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirming. They pretend people that speak more prolifically than them don't speak clearly. There's mass corruption with our countries, including countries killing each other. They have roles with psychiatry, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, making things appear to be debatable that are not. Originally, still, they have our founders' communications replaced. Or pace. In other words, they have other communicated for James Madison and for the founders behind him and his plan. And then further, they have the presidents. They have other communicated for our presidents, and then for James Madison as a president, he still didn't have free speech. It was James Madison's plan that caused the Declaration of Independence. It was James Madison's plan that caused the Constitutional Convention. It was James Madison's plan that caused the Civil War. It was James Madison's plan to get us to communicate what he declassified, and appreciating where and how and why we have rights that are too numerous to have to list, let alone low courts, still collusion. So what do you think witch trials are about? Slavery was entrenched too. No. Sickly distinctly against everyone, fact, nature wise, therefore physically. All natures of difference are being and have been used remotely by a singular breaching method, but all rolls with it. That's why and how people get away with pretending to be about woke legitimately and counters to it legitimately. We have to be led by hyper invisible but still discernible. And we have to allow people free speech regarding all the ways everyone is criminal is influenced together. In other words, every individual voice has and has had faked and changed things stuck into databases, and people pretending fake behavior, fake motivations at the same time with that, and fake motivations for it, even when they have real ones. This is increasingly communicated to ourselves. There are only three branches of government at countries A through Z. The difference of them with the instances, or worse, criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, slash hypercriminally foreign influence. No, there was slavery and all those laws against Native Americans and colonists, distinctly all natures of difference against women, against men, boys, girls, sickly distinctly. With that worse thing, criminal incompetence and all roles pretending other to an extent. Otherwise, that body was sensed, including if that body was a majority of people, including if it was every single person, and that was is adapted to, including if it's any grouping of countries to trying to come to counter that and what it caused, and with nature's demonstrations of it, while still too roles with it are still blamed also on other things, others ourselves, as styles, needs, and natures of logic, of narratives by integrity. That can't get away with that. So needing to self-value the collusion slash S with names at next to all ages and natures of campuses, with connections between them made for them. Increasingly, there are doctors who attach me to fake conversations, intercities, who have connections to each other. And these are people with ones with badges. They have a whole bunch of people at Harvard Hospital have roles with intelligence at the Connecticut Corrections Offices and at the state judicial branch offices, and with names next to it, tied to their roles with the Oliveri family and the DeMoro family and others who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have roles with predicate acts, facts, identity theft, fraud, claims, federal evidences, crimes. Off campuses tied to it as their collusions with people at campuses, putting fake audio and video into campuses, including ones filmed 24/7. Increasingly, these are names involved with the other countries, including border countries and people with the border states that come to the same campuses and have been since before everyone was alive. No. And the difference of it, collusion there or at next to the locations. Increasingly, names all along Route 3 sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm they put little fake things and fake motivations for it and changed communications, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, which is including wire crime acts and methods with the Wethersfield Police Department, with Wethersfield Pizza House, which is right next to the judicial branch offices, which is one of the things conjunctive to Route 3 and conjunctions to that, involved increasingly with various natures of courts, too, in all sides of cases, in themselves roles with switching names and sequences, and their roles with the same house slash S with their extended family members involved with child abusers, leaders of kids and elderly, first forced and still being forced. Also, where and how. Worse than criminal incompetence as self-value roles, hiding and changing and faking what people say and say, using any exception to get away with it dishonestly, while being and having been used remotely, criminally for influence, show needs to. In other words, you guys are preventing me short words. Channel 3 News attached me to fake conversation with themselves and with others about the World Trade Center attack. They attached me to fake and changed communications with my family, with people that pretended they knew me to my family since I was a kid. I'm finding this out. These are also people involved time collusion slash S with the Saudi attackers, motivated through their roles with Central Connecticut State University, UConn, Trinity College, Quinnipiac University, Johnson and Wales, and Bryant University, involved planting sequence shifts, pretending passions and emotions tied to it, interstates, and as people involved with the conjunctions to Route 3 and the conjunctions to that, where and how it is manifested as exceptions, exception nature, where and how this breaching method new people would have to explain phenomenon. Phenomena relative to the phenomenon of itself being having been demonstrated by nature and by our founders. But our founders' communications were replaced. What they declassified about where and how they did not have free speech. We have that replaced. There are self-valid rules with the uses of their speech or of experts regarding them, replacing what they communicated in that principle about how our founders communicated for themselves to be referred to plural as James Madison as his plan singular. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to use that plan and to counter, extort, and force the rest of the Native Americans and the rest of the colonists to either get the Constitution unabridged and appreciate why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, let alone when the differences of guilt of other nations, of work criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of A through Z that came through the criminally foreign hyper criminally foreign campuses. Whiting Forensics is leaking rolls with the United Nations, the UN, is involved with all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes and digital crimes and federal evidences crimes, sexual and medical offenders of kids, including with people named with Sandy Hook campuses and Middletown campuses, intercities campuses, as people involved in the judicial branch and the state corrections offices, putting fake and changed phone transcripts, hiding and faking what's actually recorded with Facebook pages of New Britain Superior Court has rules with child sex offenders, including further with a principal being with more worse digital crimes than his upskirt picture rolls that he's in jail for. And the people at the jail are keeping his mouth shut too, under the guise of corrections, etc. And increasingly, the corrections offices has rules with the same house/S with extended family members and with the other people involved with the conversations with them, where how they have multiple police departments involved with them, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. At the same time, foreign and domestic military, people at the World Trade Center and the spots next to it right before and in the attack, as collusion/S and since, also with the news. Increasingly, there are conjunctions they have roles with Connecticut's news locations and their sources, and next to their locations, the difference of the guilt of the intelligence at WFSB or intelligence next to them through time. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and fake motivation screening, in other words. But this is where and how. A breaching method show what everyone. One of the qualities that countries value is the right to lie, because it made them incapable of speaking for truths or lies properly at countries A through Z. And so this is locations, areas, and states, styles of individual voices that are preventing presidents as styles of the human species body, of individual bodies. Volume science, where all group differences are demonstrated. They are demonstrated to us by nature's identity. They are generated by that which is generating other completely different species bodies of individual bodies, also with all group differences generated by that. We are distinct from the other species bodies, but non-distinct, and we are simultaneous, but also for a distinct identity of simultaneous nature, as that value/value progression that is not us, that is not them, but it is all things anyway. Hear many pray because all void. The names of the people of the sciences stand abridged. Readings of things where you employed roles, keeping other things, others, or selves. Blamed for why and how, really. All formal fact treatments state collusions with that overt, really criminally foreign influence. And the exceptions. On a mass scale, the identities of the names of people, including the law, they're only capable of valuing and having value. All readings of statutes and precedent self-valued having been collusions. In other words, self-valued because that's having been used remotely, right where it's not self-valued too, though. No one self-values roles, preventing how we have black pupils, whites of eyes, and the other revelations that come with it from being voiced. But it made it and keeps exceptions. Even the real ones, like motivations, oh, but I'm a teacher and that's how I was trained to do it. It's not just as simple how it gets away with it, as the differences of guilt. Increasingly in cases that even have nothing to do. People have no clue at all. They have roles with overt criminal enterprise, private ones or not. In other words, they have time collusion/S with them. Where how everyone get, in other words, they're stacking predicate acts with facts in databases and with the names next to it, because the difference of that is also exploited. Because that's also what we should have been observing, where how nature shows us the difference, how it uses exception nature, the ways we know, the ways / as we know. But then further hyper additionally, in ways also capable of showing us if we are being tricked or using them wrong or using our systems incapable of being to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. It means out of nowhere. The way it shows us it to cause that or to cause negative value nature. But I'm talking about ourselves as individuals. I'm talking about ourselves as individuals relative to fact, treatment, nature, quality that we are offensively prevented. So Connecticut interbranch with names on all sides of cases and names with the courts. There is even a victim's advocate associated with a sub-Iberio, but others I don't, and someone he stole a speaker box from, who's involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a Mark Violet, and people and a Mike Violet. I never had a word of conversation with Mike Violet. Others that know my names, I don't even know their name. They sought me out to make fake natures ties to me, and intelligence families that grew up near me. And it is manifest distinctly in the suburbs, in the suburban / urban, as Hartford itself described, but tactical ulterior from how our founders plan and reality shows us it should have been described. In other words, so we have to have mandated law followed properly and with care, but they are incapable of doing this. A certain type of victim / hyper victim was shown that they need to react as fact-driven nature to streams of people going into courts each day. But no one saw the real, one of the things involved with it are a whole bunch of collusions that were also bound in the past, not just since before America's founders were born, by a method, a human fact-driven nature predicate acts with facts method, but a human fact-driven nature preaching method, if you will. If you deny it, your nature, your logic will have inherent to it, active to it, progressive to it, demonstration / S of the same thing, which is also hyper-evidential proofs. But this is also relatively weird into how the interbranch have been switching and forging names and refusing to identify themselves legitimately and to get onto paper and making confessions tied to this, not just to me and through me, forced to it. No, they're lying about my motivations. They're lying about what they think people should keep their mouths shut or when they should answer their questions. They ask questions that will communicate, demonstrate their collusion / again with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, sexual and medical offenders of kids. There are foreign and domestic medical families, including ones with badges, that are attaching people to fake transcripts at locations, at campuses of all ages and natures, and they're forging other doctors' names and making them collusions, also using the identities in their cultures and the other countries involved with this, including the ones killing each other. All collusions with, as ones with fire departments too. No, they only have peace involved with peaceful energy generation. First of all, generated by the breaching method that put the all ground locations, including the suburbs, designed before America's founders were born, a little bit unsafe, tactically denatured. The only way to counter that through not just internationally monitored conversations as collusions with way worse than just slavery, torture, extortion at the same time, murder, pretending others, all kinds of predicate acts with facts methods are all kinds of organized crime acts and methods and groupings, because they are styles that are also grouped and with differences, rackets, roles that originally instilled, that pretended other things other than themselves were involved with their motivations, even when correctly, increasingly using truth to pretend that, but leaving out the breaching method. Forgiveness is so we can discern. We're supposed to discern that which trials are about. And we're supposed to look what were the signs, what were the laws, value as at the that were around the which trials besides that too. There are value as torture, extortion, and factory nature, slavery of everyone sickly distinctly. And used functionally by the breach method, how sickly non-distinctly would be left out by everyone, even though that's right where we could count it, including as still. Countries A through Z have sick will hurt us and hurts us sickly non-distinctly as means to agree to know as relativity too to where and how there are all those things that we know we all want clean water, but why is it not around everyone? Oh, because we can't put them through systems, tax, military, and so on. We go like that. In other words, but we don't have agreements because all natures of employment still. Our founders communicated other. But you guys won't even let the first principle thing be understood. Why and how everyone had to hide their motivations and collusion/S with the breaching method. And how they use even the real motivations to screen the breaching method, even though no one wanted real collusions with that. It may keep exceptions. We're going to examine this breaching method. But you guys got to get me off the fake conversations about the World Trade Center attack and about other things with themselves and with others that Connecticut's Channel 3 News pretended. WTNH also has roles with their sources through time, all along Route 175 from the founding locations in Old Wethersfield, Connecticut, all the way to Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, with names like a Joshua Schumack is one of the ones along that route in Newington, involved also with the Facebook page of Wethersfield Police, with the principals being involved with other digital crimes. Worse than the upskirt pictures, him and more FBI have roles with that too further. And on Twitter before the sale of Twitter to X. But there were other agencies involved with this too. And they would rather have that leak that than get one person on paper. I've been asking Judge Napolitano online because they changed digital evidences. Whiting Forensics has a Joshua Julian involved with the UN people, involved with a Bob Chase, also with a Phil Cololo. Further on my street, involved with predicate acts with a Bob Chase, who was supposed to read me a police report. This is Phil Cololo is one of the ones attached me to fake natures of ties to himself. Increasingly, people with a two-route highway and Anthony Agman have roles with sexual and medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the family members of, and the persons of probate court judges, superior court judges. There are even people with the Connecticut's district court and, all the courts, because these are people involved with the state judicial branch offices and the state corrections offices with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists recorded before the World Trade Center attack. In that context, and since still the same ones involved with predicate acts with the Wethersfield Police, and personally and professionally involved with them with other police departments in Connecticut, and their roles with putting fake things, acting tied to off campuses, behind people's backs, tied to the roles to also behind people's backs that don't even know my campuses, and they try to make fake exceptions. And this is at the same time with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of different countries. Eric Oliveri is one of the people who sought me out like less than a handful of times. I never saw him out ever. Try to make fake ties, fake exceptions ties to me with complete strangers too. People with the state judicial branch offices, with the corners of Elm Street and Wethersfield and Rocky Hill. Him and ones with the name Violet, and others with the name Cololo, who worked at the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 years before a Mazzucato Bakery was there. And this is a reported family and intimate ties of a police chief, Cintron, who has a daughter, Jessica Cintron, who I never saw in real life ever, involved also with sexual and medical offenders of kids, forced leaders of kids around their own. And their roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and differences rackets with a whole bunch of different countries with them. has something to do with that, with their roles with that corner too, from years before Mazzucato Bakery was there, and all along where they used to be. People with the businesses and houses next to Hartford Hospital's campus there, involved also with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and roles of predicate acts with facts and methods of them at campuses, and with the names next to it as collusion slash as they don't even know the extent of, because they are being and have been used remotely. The kids of every branch, in exceptions, this is A through Z. The difference of guilt too was is used. We're the court, we get away with that, or we're the police, we get away with that, or with the people get away with it, or criminal enterprise. In other words, they're complaining about gangs. They have roles with a whole predicate, private criminal enterprises, collusions timed with the overt criminal enterprises and the interbranch every day. They're involved with predicate, all kinds of evidence is racketeering, worse than war crimes. Black pupils see the whites of eyes, as yet discern correct where formal speech can free us all. See breach. Yes, black people.